I am talking this the police merger considerations.
Could you please speak into the microphone?
But
Could you please speak into the microphone?
Yes.
I had trouble hearing him.
talking with some of our representatives here and attending the police committee meeting, the concerns seem to be more for the well-being of the 13 or 14 officers rather than the 15,000 taxpayers who are paying for any duplication of service and administration. These good old boy attitudes within government have to stop. Besides being ethically wrong, we simply can't afford these practices anymore. I talked with Town Clay Supervisor Damian Ulikowski, or their comptroller and their police office. Quote, not one complaint, and we have equal or better protection since the merger, they feel. Damian told me the town saved $1.2 million in the 2 years since the merger with the county and should improve to a predicted $900,000 per year and a $12 million over 10 years with inflation. Why should Cicero be any different? Again, I have no animosity towards our police department other than the whole state has become over police controlled, I feel. We simply cannot afford this any longer. The current very lucrative wages and benefit packages of the insensitive, greedy government unions representing police, teachers, CSA, the Teamsters included, are strangling us tax-wise. They're bankrupting our state. Furthermore, if the town continues with its long practice of overpopulated township, different subject, professional firemen's wages and benefits are far behind. They've already been crying for more help for a while. Additional comment. At the last town meeting, I asked, I believe, a rhetorical question: why the town police might object to the merger. First there was silence, then a police comment. We enjoy a personal connection with our town residents. Why would that change if they were a sheriff? Excuse me. You see, I had already talked with the supervisor who had said that members of the town police department will lose some seniority and benefits with the merger. So it's like talking to a real estate when you're buying a house. It's what they don't tell you that may matter. At last meeting, and I was surrounded by the man with a gun. At the end of the meeting, I was surrounded by a man with a gun and several others who I assumed to be other town of Cicero police, and was asked why I don't like the police. I said I was interested in saving money one way or the other. The man with a gun tried to show me some quote, county numbers that proved less cost to it without a merger. Well, I happen to have some county numbers that say otherwise, that came from the county comptroller through our own town of Cicero comptroller. They're 2008 numbers. But these are the professionals we pay to keep track of our money and how it's spent. They say that we'll save $361,200 a year with a merger. The next question, let's see. The next question by the man with the gun was, where do you live? I saw a TV interviewer with Mr. Corll. He told the interviewer that there wasn't time to get the referendum on the ballot due to the Board of Elections constraints. Well, the Board of Elections told me that the town has up to 36 days prior to the voting day for the town clerk to submit an official referendum. That's September 28th. So the town still has 6 days to get it done. Thank you.
Tony, do you want to explain the time constraints? I know that the committee provided a report on the 25th of August, like you said, in anticipation perhaps of it being on the ballot. But if you could expound on the time constraint, because there has to be a public, you have to enact a local law first.
What happens is you have to enact a local law abolishing the department, subject to permissive referendum. That local law would have to be adopted by the 27th of September in order to get onto the ballot in November. In order to have that public hearing and adopt the local law, you'd have to have at least 10 days notice published that there would be a hearing to adopt the local law. So we're obviously way beyond the time frame. It just couldn't be done.
Plus, it's also my understanding that upon the submission of the local law, that particular vote would have to take place between 60 and 75 days after the adoption of the local law.
Correct. Because it pushes into December, January. But it could be on the November ballot.
My name's Lew Bersani, and I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask. How long are we looking into the future for this to be put on if you get the correct numbers that you need?
As soon as the county executive, the biggest problem that we're having is because of her budget. And obviously now I believe there's a lot of legislation that is causing changes in her budget. It's not been finalized, just like everyone else's. I've asked, and I have to wait until they have finalized their budget to know exactly what it is, that the numbers that they can give us. And it has to be not just one level of service. It has to be looked at as to what service on an enhanced contract do we need in order to maintain the service that we have in the town right now.
I am very sure if you elected to eliminate completely tomorrow our police department, who would step in and take their place? And when would they do it? It would be the sheriffs, probably the troopers, and it would, the other part of that answer is immediately. Now, another option is to force a referendum onto this board, if this takes too long, with signatures from the public. And I'm getting very prepared to do that. I was promised in the spring that I wouldn't have to go through all of that work. And I'm getting ready to start that. And I'd like some comment from you. Answers, whatever.
I'm trying
This is getting very, very old.
Yeah.
And it should be put to bed. People who don't like the police can get rid of them. People who like them, let's keep them. And put it to bed, finally.
But Mr. Bersani, if it were to go up to abolish the police department, and it passed that we do not abolish the police department,
then you'd never hear from me again.
I understand it.
But
Not that I don't want to.
I want the choice.
I understand that, but in order, people have asked that as well. But they do not want an ultimatum. They do not want to say either yes or no. They want to know what happens if.
I think a lot of people have made an informed decision on this already with the facts that are out there. I really do. I'd have.
I understand that. And there are several people in this room right now that have formed their own opinion as well.
Yeah,
but I am not, myself personally, I'm not comfortable with the questions that have come to me to give them an ultimatum as to abolish, keep or not keep.
I would be very careful about calling it an ultimatum. I
Well,
would be calling it a choice.
But it's a choice, but an ultimatum, because if it is abolished, it's abolished. That's pretty obvious. But if it is not, what kind of a service? Do we keep the service that we have?
Probably need some overhauling, I'd be sure. You know, through this whole thing, some of the issues that have never come up were professionality, some of the lawsuits that this town is facing because of some of the Cicero police, some of the history that's out there. And I've asked, people come to me and tell me, oh, they did this, they did that. I said, go and talk to them and say that at one of the 3 meetings. They were all afraid of reprisal. And I can understand that. And there's a lot of people that said, I really want to have it on a ballot so I can make my decision without being public about it. I mean, I get a lot of people talking to me about this. And if this doesn't come together soon, the forced referendum may be the way to go. I don't know. And I have people that would start to do that. It's a tremendous, tremendous amount of work.
This is also a tremendous amount of work.
I'm sure it
And
is.
the decision of this board to do that.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is.
So we appreciate your efforts as well, and certainly I hope that you will appreciate ours to make sure that we are doing the right thing when we make that decision.
Okay, let's one more question. If you make the decision to do it, how soon would it be done after that?
As soon as we receive our information from the county, it will be presented to the public. All that information.
On a referendum?
No, it has to come before us because we have to make a local law first. We can't even go to referendum until after we vote on a local law.
Because tonight is the first time I heard about the local law thing, personally.
Oh, that's part of the
Maybe I'm
referendum.
not paying attention.
Well, no, it's part of the referendum. That is part of what takes place in order to put it on the referendum. It's a judicial process.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
But just for clarification, if the local law were passed to abolish the police department, it would be contingent on the outcome of the referendum. Is that not correct? So if the referendum went out and people said, we're going to keep the police department, you know, the local law then becomes not an issue. Correct?
Yeah. But it can't get to the referendum until you pass the local law.
Now, I understand that, but I think people have been confused about that. Just because you pass the local law and the referendum is to keep the police department, it doesn't mean that the board has committed to abolishing the police department. We're not bound to it if the local law is tied to the referendum outcome, right?
Is that right, Tony?
The local law, you wouldn't vote to keep the police department. The way the thing works is you have to vote to abolish. That's what makes it subject to the referendum. Keeping the police department is not subject to a referendum. Abolishing a department, not necessarily the police, any department, is subject to permissive referendum, which then makes it subject to also a mandatory referendum. So the vote has to be to abolish. If the referendum, as part of that local law, is not passed, then the local law is null and void. You go back to status quo.
And the committee's recommendation was that, however, to
merge with the
merge police, dissolve the Cicero Police Department, and the question would be then whether or not to merge and share services with the county contract.
And I think, in all honesty, one of the things that I think could come out of a discussion with the public once we have the meeting is, how much service do you want from the sheriff's department? Do you want it to be the same as we have now? Do you want it to be more, or do you want it to be less? And that's where the numbers will come out.
And in the current numbers, as I said earlier, where the numbers that we have say, if, in fact, everything stays status quo, as the chief's numbers have been formulated, next year, savings of $63,000, the following year with the 9% administrative cost, then you're up to, we're in the whole amount of, Chief, what were your numbers?
I don't have in front of me.
Okay.
I made a
Sorry.
mistake, Mr. Snyder. I'm not going to do anything.
Well, you know,
Based on that, is the county reducing the 9% or not? And that's what's going on right now.
That's what we're-
right, Chief?
Pardon, I'm sorry.
With the 9%, that's what you were discussing earlier.
Well, that's the issue that's holding up the issue with the county at this point, right. And that may not be resolved until they pass a budget.
Which is, they don't pass their budget until November.
Well, but that's going to be the issue due to the fact that it's all revolving around the Clay contract, that 9%.
Right. That's what they base their numbers on.
Right.